but it'll be fine. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know is it's going to be fine.
They
right. Where was it? Okay, so I saw this today. Ooh, it's a bit long. They assume you did. Let's see. Let me get some general thoughts here. What Max said.
Max, would you ever sell a mug with your face on it?
No. That is a Chris idea. That's what that is. Okay. Cool. All right.
No. Viewership was lower overall this race.
Was it?
This was the most viewed race world first by a shitload, but it's also impossible to
It was really
compare
long,
that
though.
because the race went longer than, like, way longer.
Yeah.
Right. One thing is true. Every race so far has beat the viewership of the previous race. But this one I don't know if it would have beaten it if it didn't go as long. And the main reason for that is splits.
Yeah, splits fucked the viewership.
Hard killed viewership.
Fucking
like
real,
there was
dude.
just a lot of viewers that were watching at the beginning that saw those couple days of splits and were like, I'm fucking out. And they just did. Right? Like splits definitely hard killed
Imagine
viewership.
casting it.
Also,
You can't even
Jailer,
leave.
the first couple days
Can't
of
even
Jailer
leave,
hard killed
bro.
viewership. Like, even when we killed Rygalon and Echo killed Rygalon, you're talking about, like, 50k viewers per channel. But then as soon as you got to Jailer, a lot of viewers tuned out up until it was about to be killed because, I mean, at least for a couple reasons I can suspect. Number one, Rygalon was a fucking incredibly cool
we lost a lot of
boss,
viewers for
and it was
Jailer.
really watchable.
I
It was
don't see the
short,
number.
It was a
Didn't
DPS
feel
check.
that way, though.
People were, like, watching every poll to see what percentage they're getting to on it.
There's a lot
you
of
know what I
notice
mean? Like,
going on.
It was just such a watchable boss. Dude, I'm pretty sure if you play WoW, like, not even most of the people who watch the Race World first don't actually play WoW. But even if you do play WoW, if you were watching those first 2 days of Jailer as Echo and us were figuring out, like, the logistics of doing P1 and P2, you were probably like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, that was
Like,
that was a big point that we made
there's
amongst
this
the
giant
teams.
boss who's just
Every
standing
like
there and looking at
30
the tank, and
polls,
there's just like
explain
pylons
all
and,
the mechanics
like,
again.
just shit flying around the room.
And it
like,
took
just
us 2
actually
polls
no
to
clue
do
what's
that. There was
happening.
so much
Where is
going
it
on in the
viewership-wise?
Jailer.
Let me pull up. I think someone just
Yeah,
tweeted it.
for
Actually,
real.
I can find it.
For us to we made a thing where it was like every like 30 or so polls, we need to re-explain this boss, and it took at least 2 polls to go through what the fuck was happening on the Jailer. Like it was so.
So I need
dense.
to pull up the one from the last race, but a couple things were true. So this race, I actually anticipated that Echo would get more. Couple reasons. Number one, the majority of the viewing audience of the Race World First is European. For whatever reason, Europeans,
true?
specifically Germans, at least according to my channel's metrics, fucking love WoW, and they love the Race World First. So Echo's channel viewership and Echo's viewership in general fell off in Nathrian Sanctum, and the main reason for that was they lost the Method channel, and the Method channel had like all the viewers, right? And and even though you might think it's like, oh well, Method turned into Echo, the next race I'm going to just tune into Echo stream. That's actually not how most viewership works. A lot of people who are tuning into the Race World First, especially early, are like, they see in their follower list, they're like, oh, the Race World First is happening, and they click on it, but they're not actually following the new guild's channel. You'll drop viewers for that. So now viewers are accustomed and they're coming back to the Echo Race to World First event because they've had the same thing. And the same thing happened to us this raid. The Team Liquid channel had much less viewers than the Complexity one did last time, relatively, and it's for the same reason. For the people who enjoyed the caster side of like the Liquid or formerly Limit Race World First, they didn't have that channel followed. So like the Complexity channel wasn't live. So like it took the Liquid a fair amount of the race to like kind of build that up, which is actually really impressive. This is the closest
I wonder if that's
like
correct.
Caster channel.
I would think
from
when you
our
know the
side
Race
has
to
ever
World
gotten
First is
to
going,
my
you know
channel.
there's a caster.
Because my
for
channel
the
usually
team.
dominates the viewership. So
Follow
Team
on,
Liquid
not.
must have. I haven't watched a lot of it, but Team Liquid's production must have been really fucking good because they were fighting against like people not having the channel followed already for the Race World First, and also my channel, and they still.
I think
did
it's
better
always going to be
than
the
other
case that
ones,
people.
too. Also,
prefer to
Echo
watch
has
Max.
like a hard preach diff too. At least from what some of our analysts were saying, like the viewership of their channel when like Preach was casting specifically, just like absolutely fucking crushed.
Is that true?
I'm still happy with it though. We call the airtime difference and the viewer difference. We call these dubs.
That's right.
No idea what it is.
Right. Is that
all
true?
added up with everyone. I
thought it was
quite
pretty
sure
consistent
they have like a
across the
lot more
casters.
viewers in like the 2 to 4K range. But yeah, my channel's still
You know
really
what
good.
that'll be? That'll be not to like downplay it, but I bet that's when we hosted because we were streaming in the morning. It's when we hosted the channel when I was going on, because I streamed in the mornings and then I would throw my host over there. Just before I went on is how we did it. Yeah, exactly. I like raided the channel just before I went on, so I don't think that's perfectly accurate. It's like, oh, Preach is on, let's go and watch it. But I would host that channel just before I would go on. So it probably look. I imagine like statistically, it looked like, oh, Preach is going on, and then it did this, be like 6 or 7K or something. Because we were doing Endwalker, so it just went poof. But that was, realistically, that's just because we're raiding the channel just before we go on.
Definitely never made this much money during a Race World First, that's for sure, by a fucking lot. But it's mostly due to just the length of the raid. And the fact that up until 2 days before it was over, we were in the lead. And anytime you're in the lead, your viewership is always just naturally much higher. I also really liked a few of our casters.
I did not see any of the Liquid cast.
Like really came into his own.
I never saw a single
is an
bit.
excellent caster.
So my routine would be to check if Liquid were raiding, I would tune into Max's channel to see where they were up to. But my routine actually was to put Scripe's channel on in the morning while I was having my showers. If I wasn't streaming, like if I was streaming and we were doing like FF in the morning, I couldn't catch up on anything. So in that hour gap that I gave myself, because you guys were like, you need to stop streaming now. In that hour gap,
like one of the things
that's when I would go and find out everything I needed to know for the next
was
stream.
Getting people with actual race roll.
But other than that, I would just check in with where
why
Max
does
is
someone listen to the guild channel versus like the Team Liquid channel? And I think like the Team Liquid channel is probably for people who won't be able to listen to comms and understand exactly what we're trying to do.
I will say I haven't seen the Liquid stream, and so I'm not downplaying it. But our caster team this time around was so fucking good, it would be hard to beat. Like, based on every caster I've ever worked with, and I've worked with probably like 30 casters now involved in the Race to World First over the years, it would be really fucking hard to beat that Echo team. And that's not to downplay the people I've worked with in the past, but that team was so stupidly good together. I don't think there was any bad combinations at all, like in any way. You hope next time Rook can be on site. Who's Rook? Not sure. Yeah, I'm certainly not going to crap on Liquid stream because I didn't see it. As simply as that. But I just know that the chemistry our team had was just disgustingly good, like crazy good. Amazed me as well, especially because we had like a couple of fresh faces in there, but didn't matter. Didn't matter at all. They were just so good, so willing to get involved and jump in. It was fucking amazing.
Unmuted almost all the time.
I remember casting's also a popularity
looking
thing.
For expertise, but they're also looking for it to be broken down for like newer viewers, kind of. And I really think someone who actually understands the Race World First and has a good teaching mindset will do that. I think Preheat has that. I think Jet has that. So this is the last Race World First.
I'm not sure where Rich's knowledge is. He's very entertaining.
So like
I love
there,
casting
but the
with
ratio
Rich.
is still the same.
I love casting
This list
with
isn't
Rich.
really
One of my
great because
favorite
it doesn't
casts
show
ever.
the airtime difference. Like Echo, for example, partnered with BDG this event, so they were actually streaming 24 hours, which is why in this one they have so much more airtime and so much more viewers because they just went 24 hours instead of.
Yeah, I never got to cast with BDG. They have their own casting team.
But yeah, I mean, like look at this last raid.
I think the only person.
2 races of a queuing.
This is going to sound offensive to the people I've worked with in the past, but I think the only person who could have made our cast even better, I think and this is based entirely off the chemistry our casters had. I think I would have liked to have seen JB there. I don't think Rich is amazing, but Rich is amazing when he's got super knowledgeable people and he can bounce around and stuff. It wasn't that kind of stream. So I think JB would have done it. I think JB would have been a good mix. I think he would have fit in really nice because nearly everybody on our couch was knowledgeable and entertaining. They didn't need the support. Like Rich's gold plate where he stands really tall and is fucking amazing is when he could just be entertaining and not have to do the really minutia stuff. But every single one of us knew that in that team, but was also pretty good. But I think JB would have mixed in really nice there because he's also knowledgeable and funny as well.
Accruing followers and producing an event by the same production team, by the way. And then right after, in the very next race, Team Liquid's was like basically the same ratio compared to my viewers.
True.
Which is like really good. Are you considering any drastic changes for next race, or is this one such an outlier that you're confident that next tier will be better? I feel like we played better in this raid than we've played in a long time. Like, we were absolutely fucking roasting.
True.
Up until even 2 to 3 days past a normal Race to World First ending. Like, in the lead and everything. Just fucking slamming. Even then, like, Echo pulled ahead on... They outplayed us on Lords of Dread and Rygalon, but even on Jailer, like 2 days before the boss
nothing
was
like
killed,
this race is going to happen again.
I don't think
like
anything regarding that would cause anything drastic.
Nothing like this is going to happen again.
I think more than anything, we need to know what Blizzard wants to do. Like, Blizzard already told us, and I can actually probably read this or paraphrase it, I guess, but I think it's fair to say we'll at least be having discussions on the team about what we learned and how that might affect future raid tuning. I'm pretty much cool with a race at any length, as long as it's not really fast, as long as we know what it is ahead of time. Like, us getting to that event this time, as early as we did, in a normal race would have been insanely impactful. It would have been good. Like, we got there an entire
I don't think so. I don't think they're going to do
That's
a 3 week.
Very not normal.
And they're not going to put this many super hard bosses into one raid
and stuff
again
like
for
that,
a
but nothing
really
that's
long
like
time.
too out of the ordinary, I guess.
I still believe
But
this
dude,
one was accidental.
With a race going
Halondrus
this long,
was just
that
a complete.
really fucking hurt.
If Halondrus
Like,
wasn't Halondrus,
after they had their flights
the race would have
for
finished
the
at a normal
fourth
time.
I believe. I mean, they were just fucking ready to leave.
I think
No
Halondrus
matter
was
what.
just
They
the
just
thing
wanted to
that
fucking
really
go
threw
home.
the
They were
spanner into it.
somewhere in a venue that was booked at the very last second, with obviously all of the issues that you would imagine come with that, and it was people were just fucking done, like, for sure. Basically, what we would have done if we knew that the race would have gone this long is we would have probably taken 2 hours off of every raid we did. We might have taken an entire day off at some point.
Yeah, that was my
and we would have
advice to
definitely
Echo.
flown to the venue later. All of those things would have been very impactful.
How long did Liquid raid for on a daily basis? Any knowers? Because I know it. I believe it's less than Echo, and it was a message I pushed heavily into the Echo team: is don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. 15 to 16. So I think Echo did something like 16-ish. I think they did something like, 11 to 13? Something like that. It was pretty brutal. It was the big message from day 5. I was trying desperately to say to Scribe and Rogers, like, don't overtack the fucking hours. Keep your sleep schedule. Make sure the boys are healthy and rested. Some days they did push a little longer, but it was such an important... Not saying I had that influence, but it was a message that was flying around the Echo team a lot, is don't overdo it. This raid is something else. It's different.
At the beginning of the race, in which, like I said, there's literally up until like 10 days plus, which is, by the way, farther than every Race World First in the last 7 years. I'm pretty sure, besides specifically Ashara. Oh, and Tomb of Sargeras, right? And Ashara was unprogressively bugged for 3 days. Like, we were actually, up until that point, we were owning. We were doing the good shit. I'm not blaming us playing as bad as we did on Jailer on just being there that long, by the way. Both things can be true. We're people very ready to go home, very tired of raiding 15 hours a day for 3 weeks. And also, we made some bad decisions and played bad. All of those things can be true. I don't want, like, our fans running around being like, oh, well, if the race was just shorter, like, they guarantee win. Like, it was just too long. Like, fuck Blizzard. Like, no. Like, I mean, like I said, 2 days before the boss was killed, we were in the lead. And then they made better changes than we did. They played more consistently than we did. And above all else, they stood up to how long this race was better than us, and they won and deserved it.
Yeah.
Just to be perfectly clear about it.
Yeah, I mean, I said it in my video as well, but there was a complete flip. When Echo got in front, there was no sense of fatigue I got from the boys. None at all. They were on fire. They were like, it was as if the last 3 weeks hadn't happened. It was like a fresh raid for those guys. Like, it was complete flip, a total 180 once they actually got in front. It was weird. It was like this, the length of the race didn't matter anymore. They were completely in the gold standard.
As far as to answer your question of like, should we make any drastic changes?
Do all
to what
teams
we're
make
doing?
add-ons? Yes, absolutely.
No, because what we were doing for the entire, they're like, was there things to learn on how they approached Jailer versus how we did? Absolutely. But like, as an overall general thing, no, because we were fucking owning. So Max, if you don't know how long the race will be going in next time, what will you do? I guess you have to make like an educated guess. I imagine you'll probably start the race like you would do every Race to World First besides this one. And then if you're at the point we were at this race, which, and I'm not kidding, At the end of the first week, you have Vantised the 7th out of
clues were
11th
there.
boss, and there are still 4 fucking
Yeah, the
bosses
clues were
alive.
there.
Then there's a good chance that raid's going to go for a long time.
Yeah.
And
The
then
clues
at
were
that
there.
point, you
That's
probably
when we
start
started
taking
spreading
many
that
hours off the
message. It's
race.
like, you need to fucking
Seems
prepare,
like it was a
boys.
race against
The
burnout.
clues are
It
there.
felt that way at the end. That's for sure. Like, the moment that really turned it for us was we made a couple of comp swaps. And on a boss like Jailer, bringing in new people after hundreds of pulls, I mean, it actually wasted an entire day of progression because everything on that boss is so extremely precise. Even adding one person in a different MC spot can just lead other people.
They were
to have
owning.
their
You can't
spots
downplay
compromised.
how Liquid
And it
played.
was just a feedback
was
loop.
18. What
People
was
were
it? Fucking
slowly becoming more
nearly 3
ready
weeks
to
in.
go
There was
home and not be at
0.2%
that venue,
between them.
which was
on the
basically
one
the whole
same
guild
boss.
was there.
Like they were
right? So it wasn't
fucking
just affecting
everything.
half of us.
Both
It
of
was
those
affecting
teams were
everyone.
destroying
Couple
that
that
raid.
with the fact that we were in the lead. Echo had a really good day, and then we made an entire day with no progression,
Yeah,
basically
that was the
swapping our
switch.
comp around. Which even in hindsight, we maybe not have even should have done. Like there was bad decisions made, but that like regression while being behind and while the race going that long, it was just a torpedo.
Yeah.
We basically didn't make progression for 2 days because people were, it was just like a feedback loop. People were in general kind of done with how long that was. Their brains were actually fucking cooked. And then on top of that, that was making them play bad, but then playing bad was making them care less. And as a leader, like I obviously criticize myself for that. I tried everything, we tried everything to not have that be the case. But that people are fucking human, man. Like you're actually just hard cooked. It was clear that at some point Echo was pulling enough ahead of us, and we saw the end point of the boss, and we're like, oh, that boss is dead.
Yep.
And they were far enough ahead of us to where we were gonna lose. And then at that point, the choice is okay, do we stay here, schedule our flights, reschedule our flights again for Tuesday? And do we just play for the next 2 days while people are burnt to a crisp? We've already lost. And just like basically force them to raid when they're all fucking like obviously done with this situation? Of course not. That would be fucking idiotic. There is no rank after first.
Method did
There
it.
is
It was
winning
bad.
and there is
It
losing.
was so bad. That Nihilotha raid, dude. I would have given anything to have got on a fucking plane and flown out of Krefeld. Like, when I walked into that room. Oh, I would have given so much to have just been like, I'm fucking out. Like, I'm going. I do not want to cast this. I don't want to be here. None of the players want to be here. They know they've lost. And now we've just sat here waiting for Limit to kill N'Zoth. We're just sat here for like 2 days. We had to sit through that where the players were like, well, we can't even possibly catch up. I still believed. I was like, just play better, lol. No.
For other guilds, it may be different, right? Like for the past 2 years, it's been a race to world first between us and Echo, and the other 3 guilds, there was a race to world third. So when you're talking about expectations, those guilds are like, there's still a reason to play because you want to get the highest rank possible. And that makes sense because they're trying to improve and get better. It's all about like what expectations. If every guild, like Pieces, Method, BDG, Skyline, whatever, if their goal was world first every raid, for the past 2 years, they would have ended every raid mad as fuck. Because that's ridiculous. You could talk to them before the raid. They're aiming for third, right? So they still have a reason to play. When we lose world first, the idea that we would make our players play in that situation for 2 more days instead of just resetting and going later, there's absolutely no way that we would do that. I would make that decision again in a heartbeat. Scripe said he would have done the same thing if they were losing. Yep. Yeah, I mean, if you're losing and you're going to lose, it doesn't matter if you lose by 1 day or 5 days. The race is over. Your goal is to win. If you don't win, nothing else matters. At least that's us.
It's about reading the room.
I'm sure that
it's like, do you value second place? And I was confused by this for a while, but Paragon had the same mindset. Is if you're not first, it doesn't matter. We play for first. Anything else, it doesn't matter. We're a world first rating guild. We're not a world second rating guild, and Liquid isn't anymore. For other guilds, that ranking is more important. It puts them more in line. It's better for gaining better sponsors. It has a lot of effect if Method gets second, if Pieces come second, and they're moving up that chart. It matters to them. But for Liquid, no. They've already been to the top of the game. And if their players are in a state where, sure, if you're going to kill it in the next 10 minutes, so it's more of like a Denathrius situation, where the boss could die at any moment for both guilds, yeah, go ahead. But if you know, one, your players are burnt out, and you probably got at least 2 more days of real progression before you're going to kill it, to get second, there ain't no fucking point. Like, your players are going to be miserable. Nobody's going to be satisfied. You're just going to, like, kill the boss and just walk out of the room and go home. If you can do it anyway. Like, it's just, there's no reason to do that because these play for first. They don't play for second place.
That's what Echo and Us's plans are, right? I'm not sure what other guilds are. Why do you think Echo withstood the long duration better? So I can tell you something from both. I can definitely speak for both guilds. It is way easier to play in the lead versus it is to play from behind, pretty much ever. Except for the very beginning, like EU is obviously used to starting for the first like 1 to 2 days from behind before it equals out because they're just used to it. So like they're obviously not going to go into a raid hard tilted. Why would you? All you can do is control what you can control, right? But like once you get to an even spot on a boss and you fall behind, it's really hard to keep vibes up, and it's because people get stressed, people get antsy. People are human, right? You saw it on Halandris. At one point on Halandris, we were at the exact same point. And then by the end of Halandris, we had killed the boss almost a day ahead of them.
It depends how many bosses have died. I've seen every different one. So there's not a one and done answer to this. There isn't. There's nuance to it. If they start the race and like 7 out of 9 bosses are dead, they're fucking panicked and stressed and annoyed and tilted and frustrated because you're like, oh my God, the race is going to be over before we even get there, right? So if it's something like, I don't know, like Jaina or something, where everything's just fucking dead before you even start the race, and you're like, oh shit. But if it's more like this race and Ashara, where there's like 4 bosses behind, it's not too bad. But I can only really speak for the Echo players, and I said this on cast. This isn't a secret, and I've told them that as well, and they know that as well. They play considerably worse when they're behind. In my opinion, in general, they do not play like I don't see like the Echo team reach Echo status until they're in front. Until that point, there's always frustration, there's tilt and stuff like that. They are used to it, but they could really do with. I think that would be my focus, is to try and find a way to reach the Echo mindset before they get in front. So once they get in front, then it appears, and they just play so much better. But until that point. This tilt is all sorts going on.
Even after, at one point, we were at the exact same point. I didn't listen to it, but I heard some shit. I imagine near the end of Echo's Halandris, they were not having a good time at all. And that's because they were behind, and they felt like they were not gaining on us. As soon as you feel like you're not gaining on the guild in front of you, it's really hard to stay upbeat. So I think they felt that on Halandris.
I don't think it was Halandris.
And then we did Anduin. And then when they started pulling ahead on like Lord Dread and Rygolon, we had to fight that.
From our vibes were reading of the vibe around me.
You have to
Halandris wasn't too
actively
bad.
Fight to keep your same shit
Anduin,
going,
though.
Even when it's really, really hard to do so. Both guilds could tell you that playing from behind, no matter the circumstances, is infinitely harder. You have to like outplay that mental deficit on you, right? I really think like the biggest turning point is you get to Jailer, and when Echo started pulling ahead, they know that. Even if you're really trying not to pay attention to it and just focus on you, you know that. And that can carry you across the finish line, where once you see that the opposite way, when you're however many, I actually have no idea how many days we were in at that point. I could not tell you. Once you're past that point and you are trying to kill a boss and you are falling behind and not gaining, that is when
because we were all worried about the reclear of
devices to deal with that as a guild. It was just not doable at that point in the race. At a weekend, sure, suck it up, kill the boss.
Yeah, Crop was week 1.
But that many days in, no shot. I would make the decision that I made for us to stop 10 out of 10 times. I think the alternative of having our players at that point just spam play all day, every day, instead of just flying home earlier, it would have just been an insanely bad decision. Did you vote on the decision to stop, or was it more of an executive decision? Like, I made the final call.
Stop shitting on Max. I don't think you guys really realize how hard it is to be the face of shit like this. Like, this is not easy. Because he's the face. Yeah. Like, no reason to be toxic to us. What he has to do is really fucking hard. And let me tell you, I've met him. I spoke with him at length, privately. And done interviews and stuff with him. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. Sure, there's going to be takes, and there's always, in the competitive world, especially if you're really a fan of one side or the other or whatever, there's always going to be back and forth between those teams. And there should be. There absolutely should be. And you're not going to agree with everything everybody says. Hell, I imagine most of you don't agree with everything I say. I hope you don't anyway, because that would be really weird. But yeah, no shitting on the dude, man. Because this is not easy to go in front of all these people, especially when your fans are disappointed. Which they will be, and have to like muddle through this. Like, this is not easy to do. It's not an enviable position.
I mean, we just had a watermelon, as they say, and we just kind of talked about how people were doing. We were basically like, all right, so we're certainly going to lose. We're not making any progression, and it's obvious why. How do you guys feel? And people were just like, dude, I just want to be home. That's like the general sentiment. Not everyone specifically, but like that's the general sentiment.
I think we felt that way before we got to the jailer.
Did you have people swapping out? Yeah, I mean, that was another thing with the race going so long is basically every other day we were swapping Trill out for 4 hours and someone else had to relearn the boss. Especially on jailer, we made 0 progression. Every day, Trill
Lords of
Dread.
Yeah.
And do you feel like your all's demeanor changed once you got to Lords and Rygalon?
This is when the Echo
The perception of you guys waiting for an HP nerf versus just going for it. Okay, so first of all...
Right. This is a big... I don't know what Max says here, but it is a big point of controversy because what he tweeted out wasn't that they were waiting for nerfs or anything like that. But it doesn't matter what he actually said, and I think he probably knows this. What matters is what was perceived as being said. And anybody who's ever put anything out publicly will know what I'm talking about. Is if you say something, it actually doesn't matter. All that matters is what people read into it. That's it. And this was when it really flipped over on the Echo side. Like, this is when it really flipped because it didn't matter that Max was like, yeah, we are fighting these bosses and they're not going to die until Enrage. Like, what the fuck? Doesn't matter because I think the Echo team, in my opinion, the Echo team read that as, oh, you're bitching. And you've only been there a day and we're going to fucking kill it. It doesn't matter what you actually said. What matters is what was read. And I'm not sure if he gets that, but we'll see. I'm sure he does.
Like,
he's not
insanely miscategorized in general. Like, I think the thing that was being linked around was that there was a sub in my channel that was telling people when we were on Rygalon that night that we were like waiting to go back to Lords of Dread until they give it a 13%. They were like, it has 13% too much health. I did not say that. I said that boss has a lot of health. I will say we were a little fatigued because the last few bosses we killed all had to be nerfed by 10%, which like affects your progression in a way. So you were just like, that's annoying. But that message that I tweeted about bosses being overtuned and unkillable or bugged when we're there to them, the overtuning was talking about Rygalon, which they did tune it down. They nerfed the damage in the intermission by 25%, nerfed its health by 6. But also, they nerfed a bunch of things on Lords of Dread that even Echo did not have to deal with. I'll read them off to you. This is what that was referring to. So we have found 2 issues with Lords of Dread that we have hotfixes in flight for. There is an issue where Carrion Swarm could interact with Pod Tender and inadvertently cause a tank to become disoriented. This was actually fixed later. Echo did deal with that one. This one, there was an issue where Anguishing Strike could, and then obviously every other guild, where Anguishing Strike could trigger its damage event multiple times. What it would do is it would triple tick the tank dot, instantly killing the tank. They had one where the boss would turn around. Let's see. We identified an issue where Contessa can inadvertently hit melee players with Anguishing Strike. So what would happen is Contessa would turn around to apply a debuff to the group, but then it wouldn't stop its cleave and it would kill all the melee. That would probably 1 in 3 of our pulls that day were bugs, but that didn't really change what we were doing. When we got out of Anduin, the reality was we killed Anduin at like lunchtime, and then we had the rest of the day to figure things out. We 6 healed initially and then dropped to 5 healing, and we got to the Enrage without optimizing damage at all. So the way you do progression normally is you just like see to the end of the boss, then you see what optimizations you can make. But you like play safe to kind of see the end point to get information you don't have. On Lords of Dread, we had like a 18 or like 14% or some kind of pull, and then we immediately left the boss. Mainly because we didn't really know what there was on Rygalon. We had Rygalon's health pool, which we were like, okay, we don't know when the massive bang cast is and exactly how long it is, but that seems really spooky. So we were like, okay, let's just go test Rygalon and get our systems ready for that boss for tomorrow. We did not leave Lords of Dread because we thought the boss was unkillable. We just didn't know which boss was more killable until we saw kind of what Rygalon did. So we went and put like 25 pulls on Rygalon. And then we woke up, and I mean, Echo definitely like also played better than us in those bosses. Like they were quicker to make decisions, specifically on Lords of Dread. They basically woke up with like, Lords of Dread is killable and we're gonna go kill it and optimize our comp around it. Like if you remember watching our channel after Lords of Dread, we were like, I mean, do we just bring in a full comp that's able to kill this or what? And then basically it was like, who knows? We could do that, or we could wait and see if they do anything to it. Because basically what I said to Blizzard was this. I can actually read my exact message I sent to Blizzard. Basically what I said was, we're not sure what you guys want to do with this boss. And at this point, they stopped ever really responding to us ever personally about tuning. Anytime they would talk or even imply something about tuning, they would speak to all the guilds at once. That happened after like, it was like the sausage or something like that, or prototype. But basically, we were like, look, right now, currently, this boss is going to be killed like 30 seconds after the enraged, basically. And typically, Blizzard does not want bosses to be like that. They either extend the enraged, like they did in our face on Lihivum, or they nerf the health or something. But usually, they want you to kill a boss in the enraged. That boss that week was probably not killable before Berserked, which is why you saw both
I'm not
us
sure that's
and Echo
historically
kill it,
true.
like 15 to 30 seconds to a minute.
A lot of bosses die in rage, right? It's normal. Maybe it's a change of philosophy of recent days. I can think of a shitload of bosses that would kill like a good chunk into rage, and they were fine with it. That I did not understand. They speak to Blizz. Yeah. Yeah, so there's a Discord channel. It's rarer for sure, but I wouldn't say Blizzard doesn't want you to do that. They're like okay with it. Unless you're like glitching out the enrage some way. I don't know. I don't think it would have been a problem if it dies in rage. Like even that stupid boss with the two bosses in the Eternal Palace died in rage. It was pretty normal. But yeah, they have a Discord channel. I'm not sure who else is in there. I'm not privy to it. I don't get to see it. Where they can communicate with Blizzard. Because ultimately, Blizzard hasn't killed these bosses themselves, right? It's not like FF in that regard. And they, without any testing, there are definitely things that are going to pop up that Blizzard wasn't intending for. Like, they do play them. They do play the bosses, but generally they test the mechanics are kind of working or working as they think they should work. And then they kind of buff them up for the world first. Look, it's not that strange that Blizzard cannot field a team as good as Echo and Liquid. So it's really not that strange. So they do kill them, but then there are things and interactions that are going to happen that they didn't expect, and all that kind of stuff. So with the world first now, and has been for a long time, by the way, there is some level of communication with Blizzard regarding it, as to where the world first teams can put forward, like, hey, we've noticed this bug. There was a lot on Echo's side as well. We're just letting you know, this is a bug, this is intended. And is this intended? And also, if it's not intended, Blizzard can tell you very quickly, like, stop doing what you're doing, right? Because that's not the way it was intended. So they had that with, like, Lihuvum. They had it with, they would have done the same thing with Sylvanas, but, of course, Echo were pulling it before Blizzard were awake when they did their thing. So they just, like, fucking rushed in and just, like, added a quick fix to it. But, yes, they do have that level of communication. But as Max said, like, they try and not do it personally. This is what I'm told. I'm not in that conversation. Where they just put out a message to the people involved. So I imagine pieces are in there. I would imagine methods in there, and whatever, just to let you all know at the same time. So keep some amount of fairness.
Depending if you got the Among Us phase after Berserk. So we were basically like, knowing how Blizzard wants bosses, we're like, okay, there's a chance that they could nerf this, or we could optimize our comp. So I asked them, like, is this what you guys intend? Because, like, we can formulate a strat right now to go 30 seconds into Berserk. That's usually not what you do. You either extend the enrage, which would be what Heroic was, or you can leave it the way it is. They ended up leaving it the way it is. That didn't affect the time we spent. We went and spent time on Rivalon, figured things out, and then also got that boss nerfed the next day as well. So I don't think that time was wasted, and we did not leave the boss because we thought it was completely unkillable. I'm not sure where that came from, as much as I think it was a misinterpretation of what I tweeted, which I do mean.
Oh, 100%.
I basically said this raid is just run into overtuned or bugged boss simulator until it's fixed for everyone else, and that happened that day and multiple times previously.
But it didn't matter.
How hard was it to get
it was
over
how
the
it was read.
bug that allowed everyone behind you to just easy P3? Yeah, definitely didn't feel good. It was such a roller coaster of emotions, because the way we killed Anduin was genuinely one of the coolest boss kills of all time.
Yeah, did Scott just solo this boss? Yeah, for like the last fucking 2% or something. Crazy. It's
Seriously,
actually fucking crazy.
At least that I've ever been a part of. And I have a pretty good mental history of, like, the race to world first. Like, that kills do not get much more epic than that. Like, that's pretty fucking cool, right? So we killed the boss, and then obviously we don't know that the stars are working, or we don't know that the stars aren't working. So just to give you guys an example, I can actually probably pull this up. So here's a couple of POVs of what the stars were doing before that pull. So look at Twisted. Look at Twisted's character. You can kind of see him right there, right? Look, he gets hit. He gets hit by this star. Ready? Look at that. His character's here. That star is there. I'll rewind it so you can watch it again. This is before the kill. This is not on the kill. This is what the stars were doing only to us before this boss was killed. They were hitting, their hitbox was fucking gigantic. It was killing the shit out of us. So we basically told Blizzard, hey, we sent them, I'm showing you the clips that we sent them. Look at this. Look at where this player is. Hit. And we were like, okay, these are not working properly. Please fix this. Blizzard posts that they are fixing these stars. Then the next pull we kill it is the pull that they don't work. So I don't know exactly what they did to bug it. They either made the radius too small,
yeah, they
or
made it like one
something to where they don't do
stupid,
damage.
right?
I don't know what it is. But the very next pull we got into the last phase, we killed it. So we end up killing Anduin in a super epic way that was hype as fuck. Honestly, that was so cool. And then people in our guild start linking clips of themselves in the thing, and they're like, yo, I was pretty sure I got mowed down by a star that pull, and I did not die. Because we were also, because like we didn't know whether they, when we were doing it, whether they weren't working or whether they reduced their hitbox to a normal size. Because previously what we were dealing with was
the worst part about this is that the casting team was so excited for the last phase of Anduin. We were so excited for when these stars, like, because we expected 6 of them to be shredding through the room. And we were so excited for it to arrive and to be like, we're going to get to see these fucking things bouncing everywhere while they do all these other stuff. And it just turned into a piece of shit. We were so bored.
Getting hit from a million years away. So we were just like, okay, they fixed it. They fixed the stars. They said they fixed the stars. So then afterwards, people were like, yo, that shit was not hitting me at all. And then Blizzard was basically forced to make them not do damage to anyone that week, which means that the 4 to 6 hours we spent making a strat for this, the time talking about it, implementing it, doing it, we had pulls where we properly placed the first and second set of stars to where they weren't perfect, but they were all in the same spot. So you basically had to dodge 2 stars instead of 6 because they were all following the same trajectory.
Echo had the same strat planned. I can't reveal that. They had
every
that
other
plan
guild gets
before
the
the raid
boss,
even
and then they
started.
just plant and kill it, right?
Yeah,
I don't know exactly how much time that saved. It's hard to tell.
I don't think it was as much as people
do it
think.
the other
It's
way,
just that
so I
Echo
don't
didn't
know,
play
but it
super
was
well
certainly
on the phase 3.
Pretty big difference.
Very frustrating.
But yeah,
to
basically
watch.
to answer your question, roller coaster of emotions. Because we were really happy it got killed, and then once we saw that the things weren't working, and then yeah, dude, I'm not gonna lie, dude, that Gingy clip sent me to the fucking moon. Like, yeah, he apologized and whatever, but like when you say things, you have like a responsibility because
he was so
me
sad.
and him and other big names and guilds
He was
have
sad.
like, your fans are going to feed off everything you say.
Yeah.
I've certainly messed up in that regard before as
It
well.
was so
But yeah,
dumb.
that sent me to the fucking moon. Watching that clip where he literally accused me of lying about saying to dodge stars.
Yeah, Gingy looked at it and his immediate reaction was that obviously Max knew that it wasn't working and they just didn't fucking bring it up and they just played it out like it wasn't. that was the clip.
Knowing they weren't working, which like obviously it's in the moment that dude was like mad we killed it, I guess, or something. That I actually don't think I've ever been that tilted in a race. That tilted the shit out of me. And then yeah, so the combination of that plus knowing that they were going to leave the boss like that for everyone else really put a damper on our kill, because the lead that we have gotten at that point just didn't matter anymore. But I don't know if it really would have mattered anyway, because Echo played way better than us on Lords of Dread. Raglan was pretty similar, I think. Taking the exhaustion.
My personal
factor,
guess is that the stars thing didn't actually matter that much. Like it's hard to say because we're in what if territory, but ultimately I knew their strat going in. I'd seen the plan for it, and I'd seen the beginnings of it. I think they would have killed it in a couple of pulls anyway. I think for me, Echo's problem was that phase 3 crowd control. I think I casted 7 hours of that failed crowd control in phase 3, and that was tilting as fuck, at least for me.
out of the most recent race, how did this raid compare in difficulty and fun to the previous 2 races?
What are the subjects?
I mean, so it was way more difficult. Also, the boss design in this raid is fucking banger.
They're not changing loot.
I mean, their boss design was mwah.
You think you guys had too much fun on the Jailer?
This is
what? What's that
people's comments that you guys were joking too much on Jailer.
Oh, they were
So
memeing too hard?
People, especially EU viewers, always come into our stream, and even when we're doing really well, we joke around all the time, and they're like, what? These guys aren't focused, because they haven't watched our guild before, or they're used to watching Echo. So they're like, these guys aren't they don't care, they're not focused, but that's like when we actually play our best. So there's always that. Like in every Race World First, there are 3 things sure in life: death, taxes, and people coming into the stream and thinking because we're joking around, meaning we're not focused and not playing well.
Oh, okay.
Like you have to be silent or mad at each other to be able to progress.
Also, other guilds' performance.
They just don't. They don't play WoW or understand.
You think not touching the final 3 was a success? Yeah.
Do you think not testing the final 3 bosses was a success or a failure? I'm pretty sure it was really good, right? Like, Rygolon was overtuned, but they nerfed it before that ever mattered, kinda. I guess we did like 20 or so pulls with before the HPS nerf. Lords of Dread was pretty spot on. I'm pretty sure if you're asking about that specifically, like just how did that turn out, it's got to be good. Bosses being overtuned was bosses that were tested. Although Halandris should be thought of more as Lords of Dread, Rygolon, and Jailer, if not for any other reason than it was untested. It was untested just like those. Halandris, on release, was a completely and totally different fight than was ever tested. It was completely changed, so it's basically the same. But if the race was a normal length, they'd all be considered overtuned, right? Since you'd be fighting them first week. I mean, so Blizzard made a point of making sure every boss we were fighting at any given time was killable with the current gear we had. Like, it may have taken them some time. Like, Halandris, if they made that moat change on Halandris and they nerfed its health by 10% from the jump, that boss would have died in 150 pulls or less. It took them kind of a long time to realize that that boss was not killable with 10% more health. The moment you had with JPC was a pretty big... Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, the JPC thing, I'm guessing it's like a clip or something, but...
Any knows?
Don't close that shit. Don't look at what they're saying.
Yeah.
You're good.
We're gonna get it.
I'm assuming you're talking about Rygolon. What happened was JPC made a mistake and wiped us 2 pulls in a row, which happens to the best of us.
Oh, did chat dive on him?
I turned around and I looked at him, and he was sulking in his chair, and he did the thing you can absolutely never fucking do if you just made a mistake, especially if you are a streamer. I know this because I also stream, and I am the target of a lot of hate against our guild. And I saw him look at his chat, and I saw him sulk even more because I know what his chat was saying. No matter who you are, and he's a pretty upbeat person, that can fuck with you.
Yeah.
So I just went over there and encouraged him and told him to close his chat, to ignore that shit, and then we were good.
I think I don't know if it's a rule in Echo, but none of them have. Oh shit!
Cool boss.
But none of them have chat open.
It was short. It was a DPS.
I don't know if it's a. I think it might be a rule. I think it might be a rule. Is they're not allowed to have Twitch chat open at any point, because all you have to do is die once out of 250 fucking pulls, and instantly the chat is just screaming, "Bench that piece of shit! Bench that piece of shit!" Like that is the first thing that happens. If the 250 fucking pulls, and you die, and it's bench that shit, you complete piece of absolute arse. You're trolling the guild so hard. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, why are they letting this guy play? He's made 3 mistakes. 250 fucking wipes, or 350 wipes. Made 2... Yeah, why don't you bench this fucking clown or whatever? And I feel bad because a couple of times on the Echo broadcast, and I'm sure some of you caught this, and I had to apologize to Ryzen directly, although like in a jokey way. He didn't take it seriously. But some of you might remember, I don't even remember which boss it was. I think it might have been Rygolon, or it might have been the Jailer. But Ryzen kept dying at the exact same spot. So we said, oh, obviously, they've moved him to something. They've asked him to do something, and it's causing a problem. So I said to production, I think it was me and Alex, it's like, let's follow Ryzen so we can see that bit and see what they've changed so that's made his life much harder. So we can figure it out. And so we swapped to Ryzen's POV, and we're like, oh, here comes the bit where Ryzen keeps dying. And what do we see? But Ryzen get knocked right into the fucking defile and spread the defile to the whole raid and kill everybody. And then we're sat there going, huh, that's probably not what he's supposed to do. But we put so many eyeballs onto him making this fucking mistake that it's unbelievable. I mean, it's kind of the caster curse. It's like, oh, we'll cut to, say, Perfecto, and we'll say something like, he's just a fucking rock solid. Like, you could just count on him to do this for like 600 or 700 pulls. You will nail it and nail it and nail it. And then you'll cut to his POV and he'll fall down a hole and die. And like Shadow Steps on cooldown or something. And he'll just be like, I'm like, fuck me, man. Okay. Do you think that what do you think raid testing looks like on a boss?
Blizzard internal testing looks like, especially for
yeah.
a boss like Halandris. There's no way they actually run it using normal parameters. Yeah, there's absolutely zero fucking chance that their testing team or anyone there killed that boss.
Yep.
Certainly with 10% more health and without the mode change. But that's not what they're supposed to do. I think the WoW community doesn't understand a lot about how actual game design works, for sure, and just spouts off things. But I think there's like some notion that like these testers actually kill these bosses and make sure they're killable. No, they don't. Especially not in the first week when they tune them for the race world first. Those people's jobs is to make sure that bugs don't occur and to make sure that fights work properly. I'm sure they have great input on fights. I'm not like discounting what they do. I'm sure they actually have a lot of input on how fights work and if they work. But they're not tuning them for them. What I imagine Blizzard does now is they give QA testers that fight and they try to make it work as best they can. And then they tune the numbers up where they are looking directly at the face of the top guilds and they're like, let's see if you can kill this. And they basically conceptualize a fight that they think can be done, and they test as much as they can to make sure it can be, to the best of their ability. And then they just see if we can fucking do it. And I don't really know how else they would be able to do it. So I don't think there's any issue with that. At least that's me. That's how I
believe it works as well.
that
I think that's
process
exact.
working.
Yeah, I
I'm
believe
just
it
guessing.
works the same way.
What's the root cause of not winning, Max? Non-toxic question. Why did you have to point out non-toxic question? That's not a toxic question. It's just like a normal question.
This is not a
literally
toxic
just came down to
question.
like the last 3 days of the race.
Just to clarify.
Echo just made better decisions than we did at the end.
Toxic.
The mental fatigue of being behind at that point was just too much for
Well,
us. to really make any
FF14
real
are more
progression.
dance style,
So
remember?
Combination
Like,
of Echo
they're
outplaying
different,
us in the
completely
last 2
different
days,
rating. FF and
specifically,
WoW rating are
and
not
the race being
comparable,
that
at least
long
at
for
this
our mental
level,
to
in
not
my
really hold
opinion.
up to that.
They're
Combination
not
of those two
comparable. The way they work is
I don't
completely
know if
different.
you already covered it, but what was the idea of pulling in the rest
Like
of
anybody
Shaman
who's,
on
I mean,
Jailer?
I genuinely mean this. If you're just like trying to straight up say, "Oh, compare the two next to each other," you can't. Like the way these fights work in WoW and the way they work in FF are totally different kettles of fish. They're not comparable, which is why they can afford that to test it and could do it a good job. I mean, I'm very happy that they kill it internally. We saw that on the live letter. You think you joked around too much? Too many weak auras? Ugh. When will you retire? What? Not toxic, by the way. Not toxic. How did you reply to that?
When do you think you will retire from World First Rating? I don't know. All I know is not now.
Good answer. Good answer. That was fine. That was good takes. That was good.